All right, call to order. Could we all stand, please, and just be 1 minute silence for the victims of 9/11? Thank you.
Pledge allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance to the United States of America and to the nation which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Commissioner Jacobs.
Here.
Acting Clerk Commissioner Kashem.
Here.
Commissioner Hodgkins, I'm going to call right now to put him on at the meeting. Vice Mayor Morset.
Here.
Mayor Mohammed's absent. Give me 1 second, please.
Please leave your.
Mark. That was the one calling me. He was calling you?
Listen, we have a quorum. If we can't get him on the phone, we need to proceed going forward. We're already 25 minutes behind.
Well, he has to join when he can.
I'm just going to go ahead and let him know to call us.
Yeah. Okay, item number 4, deletions or withdrawals to the agenda. Any changes to the agenda, or then I would like a motion to approve the agenda as is or as amended.
Entertain a motion to approve the agenda as printed, published.
Can you second?
Roll call.
Motion made by Commissioner Jacobs, seconded by Acting Clerk Commissioner Kashem. Acting Clerk Commissioner Kashem.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Morset.
Yes.
Commissioner Jacobs. Motion passes.
David, please. Presentations and proclamations. That's after you, huh?
May I, Mr. Vice Mayor, just for the record, read the title into the record before we hear from our Finance Director? And Mr. Vice Mayor, Commission, just for the record, we're here this evening pursuant to Chapter 200. It's Section 200.65 of the Florida statutes. This is your first of two public budget hearings, an opportunity for you to adopt a tentative millage rate followed by a proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year. In a moment, you'll hear from your Finance Director and your City Manager with regards to those two items. For the record, item 7.1 is Resolution 2024-017, a resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Pembroke Park, Florida, adopting a tentative millage rate of 8.5000 mils for general operating budget purposes for the fiscal year 2024-2025, providing for the establishment of and setting forth the date, time, and location of the public hearing to formally adopt the fiscal year 2024-25 millage rate, providing for conflicts, severability, and providing for an effective date. And just for the record, Mayor, it is statutorily required that we publicly announce both the proposed tentative millage rate of 8.500 mils for the general fund budget purposes for the upcoming fiscal year. That's 7.1900% increase over the rollback rate of 7.9296 mils. With that, and with your permission, Mr. Vice Mayor, I'll turn it over to the Finance Director.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I put together a brief presentation for you. So let's walk through it real quick. What you're looking at here is, this is our ad valorem, okay? You can see here where property taxes, okay, that's gone.
Mark?
Property values, you can see, oh, there we go, okay. I don't think I have a pointer, but that's okay. Property values, you can see the change there. So taxable values is in the orange, right, upper left-hand corner, and the green line is the percentage change, okay? So you can see here that in 2024, the property appraiser, the property values increased by 11.3%, okay? We have over $1.1 billion of property value within the town of Pembroke Park. And so with that, we have to go through your 8.5 mils. What your 8.5 mils does is that comes up with the value of about $9.7 million for ad valorem taxes. But here's the caveat. I can only budget 96% of that, okay? So you'll see these numbers go through as we go along. But you can follow me along. So that's our general overview. If we go to the next page, you'll see why this is so important. It's very important because property taxes represent about 53% of your revenue that comes in the door. So this process of what we're doing, having a public hearing now, having a public hearing later on this month, is required by Florida statute that we have comments from the public, we present them with the numbers, and we get it voted on. Now, if there are any changes in the future to the budget, we can make those changes in any duly enacted meeting that is called, okay? So if we go on to, I think we're on the next slide here. As I said before, this right here is the amount of property taxes. These right here are all our revenues. You can see here on the bottom right, what I'm comparing is 24 budget to 25 budget. Now, what are the major swings there? Well, number one, we just discussed property taxes, right? You can see the top line there, they went up over 11%. Another item that we're bringing into revenue is we have to use up all the ARPA funds, okay? We have to encumber them by December of 2025, okay? We have to use them. So we're bringing them into revenue. You can see there, grant revenue, 100%, okay? That's not only ARPA funds, but that's also the police department have some grants that they have coming in, and we'll dig deeper into that when we get to that phase. Another one here that you'll see is transfers in. In order for me to balance the budget, I have to get transfers in from the other funds. Your other funds are your building fund, your sewer fund, and your stormwater fund. Those funds, the reason why we call them funds is because they stand on their own, just like the general fund. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So here's an overview right here. You can see on the left-hand side, the entire budget for the entire town is made up of these 4 funds. Now, the general fund is the only fund that actually has departments, and you can see the departments there on the right-hand side. And we'll walk through all these different departments, okay? But the general fund, when you're talking general, you're talking about these departments on the right. When I talk about the sewer fund doesn't have any departments because it's the entire fund. So that's just a little bit a nuance in my world. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the general fund. Okay, this page here, I'm on the next slide. This page here on the left-hand side, this is a very, very important slide. Number one, it shows us a couple things. It shows us in columns where all the funds are, and I wish I had a pointer, but I guess it doesn't. It shows us where all the funds are. You have the general fund on top, you have building fund, stormwater, and sewer. Then it shows you what our estimated revenues are, and then below that, it shows us what our estimated expenditures are, and you'll notice that they balance to 0. Now, according to Florida statute, not only do we have to have a meeting, but I have to present to you a balanced budget. Now, when we budget, what we're doing is we're budgeting expenditures, okay? So what that means is that I cannot go above these numbers here, the expenditure ones, without coming before you and amending the budget. Okay, so that's a good thing. Now, I estimate my revenues, okay? Other than property taxes, which we just saw makes up 53% of your revenue, okay? All the other ones are estimates based on a 4-year average annual growth rate. That's the kind of methodology that we kind of use in my industry, okay? But you'll see I've highlighted some key figures here. The changes in the general fund, the biggest changes in the general fund are public safety and capital, okay? Those are the biggest changes this year in the budget, and we'll get into more detail. All right, now what you're looking at on the next page is what we have here is we have 3 years of actual. By the way, we did complete our audit. The audit is done for 2023. If you recall, we were down, we didn't have the audit done in 2022. We still had to do 2023. Well, we got 2022 done in January 11th, and we just recently got 23 done. So we're all caught up with audits. That's been sent over to the to JLAG as well as the Florida Auditor General. Now we'll have to answer questions back and forth later on. But as far as right now goes, we're caught up with that. Okay.
What date was that submitted?
Let me see. What's today? So today's September 11th. I want to say that was August 28th. Yeah, August 28th. So anyway, that was submitted. So what you have here is you have 3 years worth of audited data, okay? So here again, we're looking at the general fund. Here's what I want you to notice. I circled some of the key figures. First of all, notice that revenue is growing at 5% on an average annual growth basis, okay? But also notice that our expenditures on the bottom right, they're growing at 10%. Okay, so at the end of the day, a lot of that was due, if you recall, on the bottom right here, this is inflation. This is the consumer price index, right? In those prior years, inflation was high, right? We were getting 10%. Inflation is starting to come down, but we do have to keep an eye on it, and we will. This, on the next page, this is where the meat and potatoes are, okay? So here you'll see the middle pie chart is the general fund expenditure overview. So what we have there is we have all of our expenditures for the general fund, $17.786 million, and this is how it's allocated. A lot of people say, wow, we spend a lot of money on contractual services. Well, if you look at contractual services, you can see that 76% of contractual services is just for the fire department, right? Then you sit there and you go, wow, what are the capital projects that we're doing? Well, we can look up there to the top left and we can see Public Works has a lot of the capital projects. We're planning on using some of the remaining ARPA funds for bathroom upgrades in this building. The AC unit is still a challenge in this building, as well as the elevators. The elevators really need attention in this building. So that's kind of what we budgeted for. And then on the other right-hand side, you can see, oh, well, what is other? Other expenses are like operating type of expenses. You can see where the top right, 35% of it's operating and utility expenses. You can see that we have lobbying costs up there, our debt service, insurance, general maintenance. So all of those groups, right? As plus, we also have compensation, which are all your employees. And we'll go into all the, I'll show you the breakdown, okay? But in general, when we talk about the general fund, we're talking about an expenditure of this year of $17,786,000. Now, you'll see that number keep going forward. Okay, let's talk about labor. Right now, what we do is we budget assuming full labor, right? Even though we have open positions, right? We'll budget as if they're here now, okay? So right now, we have 52 FTEs, and we have 13 open positions. Now, when I wrote this report, this is version 5, but when I wrote it, we had some new employees come in and so on and so forth. But overall, this right here is pretty accurate. Okay, but the biggest open position is obviously the police department. But I want you to feel safe and know that we've budgeted for those positions here. Now, also keep in mind that our budget includes an assumption, an overall increase in salaries of 5% for non-union people. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone gets 5%, okay? Some will get maybe none, some will get 3, some will get 5, some will get whatever. But in order to give a budget, I need to have some type of estimate of where I think we're going to be at, okay? And the other thing, too, it also takes into account is our pension costs, which is determined by the state of Florida, as well as our insurance cost, right? We just got through today renewing a lot of our insurance costs. We baked those numbers into this budget. Now, one thing also that we had to do is we estimated a value for the police department. As we continue to go through negotiations with the union and trying to set up the union contract there, they came to our department with a certain value. We're still in negotiations with that, but we estimated a conservative amount for the police department and their union, included in the general fund budget. But you can also see that your general fund, 38% of your general fund expenditures are labor and related. And you can see here what departments make that up. You can also see that police obviously makes up the majority of your labor, right? And you can also see all the other departments and how they fill in there. Okay, on the right-hand side, we included those numbers there, okay? This right here, typically when we're talking about government, we're talking about the functions a government does. And this is how we categorize. You'll see it in your audited financial statements, or you'll see it how we compare and contrast our government to other governments. Governments provide to their citizens. They provide general government, public safety, culture and recreation, public works, capital outlay, and debt service, okay? And so those are the big things. As I said before, this budget is really going to focus on capital, okay? Because that's what we're trying to focus on. So, but you can see there, as we said before, public safety, and you are no different. Most towns are like this. Public safety is the #1 cost associated with any municipality. And that includes fire and police, by the way, okay? You can see here also, as we said before, that capital, I put up there right here, the capital projects and needs are anticipated really to dominate this budget. The reason why is because although we've done a lot of studies And although we've laid a lot of the groundwork, we have to start putting shovels in the ground, and we got to start turning dirt, right? Because I put this little note here. Number 7 there, you'll see that's one of the disasters of a municipality is when they do not keep up with their capital projects. And look at what the last sentence says. The last sentence says, when cities are unable to invest in infrastructure, the long-term financial health can deteriorate, especially as residents and businesses leave due to poor service conditions. So that's our goal, okay? We have to start investing in capital. It only gets more expensive, right, the longer we wait. Here it is by department. Here now we took all your expenditures. Remember what the budget expense for the general fund is $17.78 million. Well, here we break it out by departments. How is that being reflected? Well, 91% of the increase in your expenditures for this budget season is attributable to fire, police, and public works for improvements, not only to this building, but around town. Again, the focus is on capital. What me, the staff, as well as the town manager directed us to do was to provide a list of priority 1 projects. We know that we have a lot of projects that we have to get to, okay? So what we did is we devised a list of the projects that we're currently working on and the projects that we still have to get to. And so then what we did is we estimated the cost of those projects, and then we had to rank them. We had to rank them in as far as what is priority 1, and that's what we're budgeting for. And so we've identified these priority projects here in the general fund. This is general fund, right? You have elevators, AC, bathroom renewals. We have some police grants that are also going to be coming in. But anyway, so you got about $2.6 million of capital need. And we know that we're going to use about $1.6 million of ARPA funds. And we also know that we're going to use about $288,000 of grant money that the police department has, okay? So where does the rest of the money come from? Well, the rest of the money comes out of the general fund, money that it's accumulated in this fiscal year. In general, at the end of this general fund, what we are trying to look at is, well, what are our reserve levels for the general fund? And so that's what we're looking at here. We take the audited figures. We take the audited figures based on the most recent audit of FY23, okay? We back out approximately 2 months of operating reserves. That's what the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Associations, feel that a healthy reserve balance for any type of local government is about 2 months of operating expenses. And so you can see there where we minus that 2 months of operating expenses. So at the end of the year, at the end of FY25, okay, if all goes perfectly well, we feel like you'll still have a little bit over $2 million that is what we would call unassigned. It's not encumbered. It's not restricted with debt or anything like that. And again, it's an estimate. But that's the general fund in nature. Now we'll speed up a little bit and we'll go to the building fund. The building fund is a separate fund. Okay, we can see here what the revenues have done, actual through 2023. I was a little bit conservative on my estimated revenues for 2025. Okay, we can see there what the 2024 estimate is going to be. I'm a little bit conservative right now. I already know where we're at in 2024, right? I think a lot of the new Wawas and a lot of the new buildings that we see here, we've already recorded a lot of those permit fees and things like that, in prior years. So I'm a little bit conservative when it comes to estimating my revenues, right? I hope it does better. Matter of fact, if it does better, it just drops more to the bottom line and our reserves, which is good. But that was kind of the idea that we picked there. We picked there just to be conservative in our 2025 budget for the building fund now. But if we go forward, now we're in the building fund. You can see here, it's kind of interesting, right? Because we outsourced some of the things that we do that we use, that we in-house, right? So we outsourced it. So that's why you can see compensation and related, right? So what we did is you see that number went down. Meanwhile, contractual services went up, okay? But overall, we're anticipating a flat growth on the revenue side as well as a flat growth on the expense side, okay? But we did increase, just for budgetary purposes, with the 5% for increases in rates of pay, as well as the insurance benefits, as well as payroll taxes. We've included all those numbers in our estimates here. This right here, again, is what we're seeing. Again, we're seeing no growth on the revenue, right? But we're seeing about a 4% average annual growth rate. That's what AAGR means, okay? But again, we're trying to be conservative in this one because this one here is really predicated on the amount of revenue that we can bring in the door, amount of building, new construction that's happening, remodeling that's happening, okay? Here is the labor component. Right now we have 4 FTEs budgeted. We have 1 open position in this department, and you can see there the makeup of what's included in labor. You can see it's 63% is their base compensation. We estimate how much overtime. We know how much payroll taxes, how much pension's going to be. So these are all figures that we know. The biggest estimate there, obviously, is the amount of overtime that we could see. But rest assured that staff budgeted for that. Again, this right here is the reserve balance in the building department, okay? Now, the building department, the only reason why I highlighted it yellow or red is because it's getting below that $2 million mark. Now, does the $2 million mark mean anything? No, it's just that after we take out the estimated reserves, we look at it, it's getting a little bit low. But see, if our revenues do better, and our expenses stay flat, then we can drop more money down into the reserves, and that would pick that up. So that would be a good thing. Now we're going on to stormwater, okay? Stormwater is the third of the fourth fund that you have. Same idea. What we did here is we were conservative on our stormwater revenues, right? We added there, you'll see that we have a grant funds already in waiting for us, right? We have grant funds there of about $1.7 million. And so that's a good thing. But notice that your revenues are kind of the same. What I'm recommending here, and I'll also recommend it to the town manager, is that we do need a rate study. Now, what does a rate study do? A rate study establishes the fact that you are capturing in your rates the not only doing the service, but the cost of capital, the cost of renewal and replacement, and the cost for reserves, okay, to accumulate that for future projects. So in the future, staff is recommending that we do have an external rate study done. We have a public hearing to address those rates, if there are any changes in the rates, and we would go down that path. I think it's been more than 5 years, and so we might have to look at that. But again, we're sitting here and we're saying, okay, how do we balance all this? Well, we think that in order to meet the demands of this budget, right? You can see, let me go back. You can see that in order to meet the demands of the budget with capital, I'm getting grant funds, but I also need to pull about $1.9 million from our current reserves in that fund. Remember, these are not reserves that are in the general fund. These are reserves that are in the stormwater fund, separate fund, okay? And it has reserves, and I'll show you that in the last slide. But what that means is that, hey, in order to balance the budget, I have capital expenditures that I need to achieve. I'm able to cover some of that cost with grants, but the difference I need to pull from our internal reserves. And that's what we anticipated. But again, you can see there in the bottom right, capital is really the name of the game in this one. And you can see as well that, you know, we've included we've included about a 1% growth in the charges for services. Where, you know, it's interesting, right? It seems like we're only getting to about $400,000-ish. You see where it says capital expense? We're only getting to about $400,000 worth of work done. You know what I mean? And so we really need to push to get capital done. And so that's really what I wanted to highlight in this one here. Again, you can see here when we compare FY24 to FY25 that you can see there the biggest change here is capital. And that's what we're focused on in this budget cycle. Labor, there are 5 FTEs in this department, or I'm sorry, in this fund. We are currently fully staffed. We have no open positions, but you can see there again the makeup of your labor dollars. Again, when we identified the capital projects and prioritized them, we knew that the Southwest 25th Street Stormwater Improvement Phase 1 was number 1. And we also knew that the SCADA telemetry system was, and that's why I put there on the far right-hand side, priority level was a 1B. That was almost just as important. And so what we did is we said, okay, we have $3.8 million of capital projects. We have $1.2 million, a grant from Broward County. We're estimating that we'll get about $595,000 from the FDEP. So that means that we're going to have to pull the remaining funds from the reserves in this account in order to balance. Now,
Before you go forward.
Yes, sir.
on that one, I did get as a grant to cover the cost of the telemetry. That was from the
telemetry.
the 500.
Yeah, 594,000. Right.
$89.
Right.
I worked hard to get us a grant for that, so
Nice.
that should be just clear money from the grant there.
Yeah. So the total of all of our expenditures, you'll see, is $3.3 million plus the 594, which is the $3,894,000. And then when we take away the 2 grants, you know, that still leaves us with, we still have to come up with our end. And that's typical with grants. And I thank you for your work with that.
But my point is it's a level 1B. That's a priority to get done, as it's on a grant item. So
Yes. Yeah. And that's what we did. The only reason why I want to show that as 1B, it's not that it's less important. It's just that it is a priority 1. So you're absolutely right. Thank you, sir. So when we pull the money from the reserves in this account, it's still relatively healthy, as you can see there, right? You can see there that, hey, okay, we got about $8 million in that fund right now. We're pulling about 6 months. When you're talking about your enterprise fund, no longer is the 2-month criteria relevant. Typically, in an enterprise fund, you want to have 6 months of reserves. The reason why, emergencies happen, it's very, very costly, and you need those reserves. So when we look at how much we're anticipating your estimated reserves to be, see, we can match those priority 1 projects, right, with our current estimated reserves, plus the grant dollars. So that's a good thing. When we look at stormwater is a little bit different, right? So when we look at stormwater, we have capital outlay, but we don't really have it. When we have our grant team here, that's kind of what we want them to try to focus on, because right now we don't have any grants identified to help us with our stormwater capital plan, but we did include it. So let me show you. First, let's talk about the revenues, okay? We have some revenues there. Again, I think that we need here a rate study just to make sure that our rates are keeping up with the cost of inflation, right? You know, if you don't do a rate study and your revenue stays the same, but your costs go up, it's heading in the wrong direction. So again, staff is aware of that, and hopefully we'll have that in the future.
it goes back to 2015, just so you know.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't sure how far back it went. Right, so it even goes back right farther than that. So that is probably a priority one thing that we need to focus on, a rate study. Make sure that the cost of providing the service, we are at least covering not only our cost, we have to make sure that we are covering the cost of capital, the cost of renewal and replacement, that's what R&R is, as well as replenishing reserves. That's what a cost study will show us, okay? So when we look at what the expenditures are, you can see there, look what I did. I circled the main cost drivers here, right? I circled the capital, as well as I circled repairs and maintenance. When you delay capital, right, your costs for repairs and maintenance just continue to go up, right? You're chasing that. And so that's what we budgeted for here. And so, again, we're looking at things the right way. Matter of fact, what we had to do with this fund is we had to reduce the amount of transfers out to the general fund, right? Just to make sure that this fund has enough excess reserves in it. So that cost of service study is going to be vital, okay? You can see here that we have 3 FTEs in this department, okay? 2 of which are open. We may have been hiring someone currently, but I'm not sure. But as of the writing of this, you know, we had 3 in there. We had 2 open. But you can see there what the makeup of their salaries are. And so it is very reasonable. Again, these right here were the priority 1 levels. You can see there the Southwest 30th Street Forest Main Replacement Project. That is the number one project for this list, okay? So, and you have, and by the way, the status is it's permitted, right? We're ready to move forward. And so that will be a priority 1 for October 1, 2025. You remember when I talked about our reserve levels when you look at the next page? Right. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that, as the commissioner just brought up, when you're not raising your rates, you're not keeping up with costs, okay? Then what happens eventually is you start to run your reserve levels low. But we will look at that in the ensuing year. We'll get that done, and we'll get that in the appropriate action. All right. I'm done with all of the funds. Again, this here is a very, very important page. This shows us that we have the general fund, building fund, stormwater, and sewer fund. The top half is the revenues. The bottom half are the expenditures. And you can see there kind of like what the changes are. And so staff is open for any questions. But here's what we're really up against. Look at the calendar in front of us. So 9/11 is today. So we need to advertise the second public hearing, right? Our second public hearing is, when is our second public hearing?
25th.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Is the 25th, okay? So today's the 11th. I need to get an advertisement to the newspaper by the 13th so that they can have a week to put in the newspaper, you know, the big advertisement with, matter of fact, you'll see the advertisement, it'll have a rendition of this in there, and it'll say a tax increase and so on and so forth. But, so that's what I need to do so that we can publish it, because the state of Florida requires strict publication dates as well as advertising in the paper. And so that's why this right here is a very extremely important meeting. And again, I want you to rest assured that if anything changes in the budget, or you would like to see anything change in the budget, we can do budget amendments, right? It's an estimate of what our sources of funds are going to be and how we're going to use them. At any duly elected meeting, we can change that. So staff is here to answer questions about methodology or whatever you would like. But other than that, staff recommends that, you know, you approve the resolution 2024-17, which sets that millage rate of 8.5 mils, as well as the first reading of the budget and setting the budget as per the presentation for Resolution 2024-18.
Any questions?
I got some budget suggestions. Hodgkin brought up a fact a couple meetings ago about contractors versus town staff. And when we had departments that don't actually have employees, and we have one director or department head over that department, it's cheaper for the city to have an outside contractor versus, say, the building department, where the building official oversees several employees for the town. It's better to have someone in-house. Looking at this budget here, when it comes to the IT department, we can have a contracted services for approximately $50,000 a year for that position, when we're currently paying $195,901 a year per this budget. That's a savings of $150,000 roughly. Cell phones. Each commissioner has a cell phone. Just want to point this out. The mayor's voicemail is completely full, never answers your phone. That's $1,200 a year. The other three commissioners up here don't even have their voicemail set up on their cell phones. Not sure if they actually use them. I'm the only one who answers my phone. So when we had bill collectors calling, I'm the only one they're able to reach. I forward it straight to the town manager and the town attorney when this happens. It's another savings of $4,800 a year. May not sound like much, but it starts chipping away in savings for the town. I started back in 2019 with the copy machines for the town, because we had old antiquated copy machines. We were able to come up with a new contract for approximately $35,000, bring new systems in, and it saved the town a lot of money. That was a project we brought forward with the finance department at the time, helped save the town money. There's quite a few of these different solutions in this budget that we can go forward to continue to save the town money and keep us in the black instead of being in the red. Another thing was the Parks Master Plan. The town's wasting $188,500 on a Parks Master Plan that wasn't even necessary for the parks. That's nearly $200,000 that was wasted on something that the town did not need. You start adding this up, it's a lot of money. So I think going forward, there's several things that we need to look at in adjusting this budget to save the town and taxpayers and have some fiscal responsibility in this place.
Well, as our finance director said, we can amend the budgets during the year for each item that we work our way through. All right, where are we at? 6?
We're at 8.1, resolution.
7.1,
Sorry,
Mr. Vice Mayor.
7.1.
And just as a matter of procedure, Mr. Vice Mayor, the title has been read into the record. You've heard a presentation from your finance director. It'd be appropriate, absent any further discussion from the commission, to entertain a motion to approve or otherwise revise
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
resolution as stated.
That's why.
Here we are.
Hold on 1 second. I pulled up the wrong one.
We are.
That's my fault.
Well, we finished with the millage rate, right?
Or you need to adopt the resolution. So you need a motion, and then you also need
Make a
to open.
motion to adopt the resolution of a tentative millage rate of 8.5 mils. Resolution number 2024-017.
I second it.
And Mr. Vice Mayor, before a vote, you need to open that up to a public hearing, please.
Okay. Any comments, public comments?
You got to use the words. I open this up to a public hearing.
Yeah. Open it up
When
to
from the
public
public wants to
comments.
speak, come forward.
No comments? Okay, close public comments. 7.2,
You need to call the vote, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Yeah,
You need to
call
vote
the
on the
roll.
resolution.
roll call.
We have a Commissioner Jacobs made a motion, seconded by Acting Clerk Commissioner Kashem. Vice Mayor Morset,
Yes.
Commissioner Jacobs,
Yes.
Acting Clerk Commissioner Kashem.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And if I may, Mr. Vice Mayor, just for the record, if I could read the title for your tentative and proposed budget, that would be item 7.2. For the record, it's resolution number 2024-018, a resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Pembroke Park, Florida, adopting a tentative budget for the fiscal year beginning on October 1st, 2024, ending on September 30th, 2025, attached to its Exhibit A, determining and fixing the amounts necessary to carry on the government of the town for the ensuing year, determining the amount of applicable funds on hand, estimating receipts and expenditures for all funds, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Make a motion to approve an adoption of the proposed budget 2025, resolution number 2024-018.
Shouldn't we open for comments first?
Prior to taking a vote, you'd want a second to...
Taking the vote.
Okay.
I second it.
Roll call.
I'm sorry, public hearing, if you would.
Okay,
Thank you,
public-
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Anybody in the public have a comment? Okay, we close the public comments.
Roll call.
Roll
Discussion.
call.
Are you going to have discussion?
No.
Okay.
Call the roll.
Motion made by Commissioner Jacobs, seconded by Acting Clerk Commissioner Christian. Commissioner Jacobs,
Yes.
Acting Clerk Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Morset,
Yes.
motion passes.
And just for the record, Mr. Vice Mayor and Commission, the second and final budget hearing in accordance with Section 200.065 of the Florida statutes will be on September 25th at 6 p.m. in these chambers. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
So, hearing, right? Ambulance.
No, the information was provided because it's been included into the budget, and the documentation is there for your review.
Okay. All right, discussions? We finished with that? Attorney's report,
I have nothing for the budget hearing, Mr. Vice Mayor. Thank you.
manager?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I want to thank David for all his hard work on this budget. And can you hear me?
You just move it a little bit. It's not sounding right.
I have one on the hip too, so how about that?
Better.
So I want to thank David working on this budget. It's not easy making these difficult decisions when you're looking at a multifaceted operation like we have. It's not a big budget, but we know that we have to make some hard decisions to ensure that we have a balanced budget. And we also address our public services for the next fiscal year. I want to thank, all of the directors in each department. We met with them individually, and we had some tough discussions. And we're going to continue to have some of those tough discussions to ensure that we meet our bottom line, and that's a balanced budget. So I want to thank all of the staff. Everyone's not happy about this budget currently, Vice Mayor and Commission and Mayor, who just came in. But we feel that it's responsible and it's fiscally conservative. Again, it's not easy having this process played out over the last 2 to 3 months. However, we're here to ensure that the tax dollars are, one, appropriated, properly. They are procured per our policy, and the expenditures are done per our policy. And so David's done an outstanding job. He's a 50-foot ceiling type guy. He looks from the 50-foot ceiling down into our operations. So do I. And so that's our approach, is to be conservative yet very responsive to understanding our services. And as David mentioned, the most critical part about next year's budget is the projects. We haven't seen projects of this nature come online in quite some time in this town, but you will see that over the 6 to 8 months. Some of these projects are ready to go. We have, the ILA coming up in our next discussion for, I think, about $1.2 million from the county. That's a major project that's going to come off the shelf and get started. You will see a difference on your streets here in the 25 year, but at the same time, we understand that that's a big part of our budget, and we have to make you have to account for that. Another thing David mentioned is we have to do a study on where we are in collection of fees to ensure that we're keeping up with the rates of other municipalities and with the county, of course. That hasn't happened in quite some time. but it has to be done. So we'll be coming back to you looking for direction on that. In addition, we have a new police force, as you know. That's a large part of your budget. And we have to adjust to public safety because of our new police department. And we're still hiring, by the way, because we have open positions. But as you know, with a police department comes bargaining agreement, the union, and so me and the town attorney, we are progressing through that. We hopefully can have something for the town for presentation here in the coming weeks. And we have to align that conversation with the upcoming budget. And so that's a tricky process because the bargaining agreement has not been completed. We're also simultaneously trying to complete this year's budget. And whatever we decide with our police department and the union, that has to align with our current budget. So that's a tricky process that we have to navigate over the next several weeks. But we'll keep you updated on that portion as well. Overall, again, these are tough discussions that we must have. We think we've done a decent job of ensuring that, one, the town's resources are protected, we have accountability for all of our resources, and at the same time that we're ensuring that the compensation to our employees are, a level with other municipalities around this county and this state. So I thank you very much to David, his staff, all the directors and the departments. And again, we're moving forward with this budget. We know there's more discussions to be had about it, but we feel pretty confident that we are hitting the mark here for 24-25 fiscal year. Thank you.
Thank you. Commission report, Commissioner Jacobs,
Nothing at this time.
Acting Clerk Commissioner Kashim,
No, thank you.
and Hodgkins is out sick. I have no comments, so and Mayor Mohammed is officially not here yet. Well, can I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, I just got to make an announcement. I know you already announced it, Mr. Horowitz, but the final budget hearing is scheduled for Wednesday, September 25th at 6 p.m.
Motion to adjourn.
Aye.
Your second?
Yeah.
Okay.
All in favor?
All right. I
Motion to adjourn.
5 minutes.
to adjourn.
Yeah.
Rack the gavel.
Let's have 5 minutes.
Rack the gavel.